All right. Hey, thanks for joining me today for another awesome nerd night. Well, as you can see, it's another week that's pretty much just run through like there's like no man's business. And I'm still here smiling, having fun, living the best life. Like I literally could not complain at all. I think that might be a little bit too loud, but look, thanks so much for joining me. If you have just somehow through the interweb found yourself here and wondering, where am I? Well, you are exactly where you need to be. You are exactly where you should have come to. Today, one thing I can promise you is that you're going to learn something with me if you stick around. And there will be several dad jokes. I might have to Google some because I'm not actually that great at dad jokes. There are several people who love dad jokes, and I do like to listen to them, but somehow I fail to deliver on the quality of the dad jokes. Look, if you've just jumped in, if it's your first one, this is NerdKnight episode 62. And this episode, just like the episode from last week, we are going to be doing Learn With Me. Obviously, as everyone can probably tell, my team and I are working really hard. The Hck4G team are working really hard to essentially put on a really good event on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of November. Our meetup is also happening next week, Wednesday, in Melbourne, Australia, but is actually live streamed everywhere in the world. So if you want to partake in the CTF, if you want to play and have fun, with some pretty incredible cybersecurity professionals and enthusiasts all over the world, across Africa and Australia, the APAC region, New Zealand, and we do have a few people who will be joining as well from Romania and a few other places as well. So thank you if you have already signed up. The CTF registration page should be live hopefully by tomorrow. So I'll be finishing that up today. I've actually built it. It's all done. Shout out to Shay, who has helped out a lot with the HTML side of things. The CTF page is actually ready. What I'm working through right now is configuring the TLS on it. We've already connected it with a reverse proxy, which is Nginx, to essentially do some rate limiting and prevent being DDoSed live during the event. And we've also got some TLS installation that is pending. We are going to be using TLS version 1.3, 3.1 actually, 1.3 actually, for the event. So stick around. Hopefully by tomorrow you'll be ready to essentially start registering and forming a team. We have 3 weeks to go, and the next 3 weeks are going to be absolutely packed. And for what we've got installed today, it's just going to be me doing some research, learning something new. I'm keen to sort of solidify my knowledge around Docker, because I'm going to need to do a lot of Docker over the next 2-3 weeks. So I'll be digging into Docker today. Hopefully you can learn with me. Unfortunately, I cannot use any paid product for it, so we're going to be relying on YouTube University. That's the first dad joke for today. I have no idea if I pronounced that properly. It's YouTuber University, YouTubeversity. Yeah, let's go. It's YouTube University. That's what we've got today. So we'll be learning all about Docker and trying to build something with it. And also, I believe I'm going to be doing some checking the threat landscape, seeing what is going on out there in the interweb, who is hacking who and who is being hacked. And hopefully no one that I know is getting hacked. But if you are getting hacked, reach out to us. Our team is ready and able to support you and to prevent you being a sweet spot for cyber criminals. So yeah, reach out. You can send us an email, obviously, hello@CyLynk.com, or you can reach out to us via our website contact forms that you can find there. Look, this is not a sales plug yet. It's time to actually get the show started. So with that, let me look for my soundboard, because there will be a lot of farting. There will be a lot of good, beautiful voice tunes today. I don't know if my voice tune is working, but hopefully it is. All right, cool. I think we should be good to go in terms of the first segment. I'm obviously going to introduce myself. I know my name literally says Semi Chucks right, on that very big image of myself. And apparently I don't have the dad gut there. I think that was when I was still, able to work out before the startup completely stole all of my time. Well, guys, literally, for anyone who's obviously watching there, I'm going to share with you guys what it takes to build 3 different startups at the same time. 2 for-profit businesses and one non-for-profit organization as well. So yeah, there's a lot of telltale. There's a lot that goes into that. And someone sent me a message on LinkedIn the other day, and they were like, "Wait, your title says you're the CEO and founder. How do you have time? How on earth do you have time to message me and invite me to Hck4G Con?" And then I remember saying to them, like, look, to be honest, it is not for a little price. The price to be able to reach out to people, the price to still be able to support the community is a pretty high price. And I can tell you guys right away that without, some very special somebody in my life, which is my wife, Tara, she does an incredible work of wrangling the 3 minions that we have, who are pretty much at the ripe age of shenanigan. She does an incredible job of handling them, and I end up spending almost some days I probably work closer to 18 hours, hovering somewhere between 15 to 18 hours work days. I know you don't have to tell me. I know you're giving me the look. Wow, 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 wow. I know it's not healthy. It's not exactly what I would have preferred to do myself. But the work that we're doing, the problems we're solving is something that is definitely worth every single hour, every single minute. Obviously, things will begin to stabilize as things begin to scale and as we begin to hire people, so I can actually focus my energy and my time on the more strategic pace of work. But for now, look, someone's got to do the dirty business, right? Someone's got to do the stuff that needs to be done. And it's your boy, Semi Chucks. All right, time for the introduction. Who is Semi? I am the CEO. Well, actually, the group CEO, like I said to you guys, we're building multiple startups, which I'm going to tell you guys about. The third one is going to launch towards the end of the year. 3 different startups, all of them designed to support the individual who is perhaps struggling to find work, or perhaps in an underserved community or untapped region. So the first startup obviously being Hck4G. So Hck4G is a non-for-profit organization that is fighting to disrupt the cybercrime syndicate, in underserved communities and untapped regions. And how we're doing that is through awareness education. So awareness of the impact and awareness of the consequence, right? Because obviously a lot of you guys know my story, how I went from, being a black hat, not necessarily a black hat in terms of being super technical, but more so from, essentially really being good at social engineering and, malware delivery, business email compromise. And that's one of the crazy things, is that a lot of the cyber criminals that you know of are not actually really technically savvy. I was reading the Blomberg article on the making of Scattered Spider. And one of the things that I found out, through that research, obviously, is that a lot of the cyber criminals that we know, that you and I know, that actually have a lot of technical powers. They're just really good at it. Maybe, they've got great people skills, and they're using that to essentially log onto people's computers and, and commit, crime. So yeah, like my journey really obviously connects to a lot of the stuff that we're building. So Hck4G is trying to help provide that awareness and training that a lot of young people need in those regions. And then from there, one of the things we found was that when we did the research, what we found was that organizations like Crime Stoppers, which would do an incredible job. Shout out to what's her name again, Haley Van Loo. She's doing an incredible job with Crime Stoppers International, Interpol, Afripol, Europol, all of the different guys that are doing an incredible work. But what we're seeing is that often they come into the picture a little bit too late, when that young person has already made a decision to go down the wrong pathway. And when we dug in a little bit deeper to find out what are the key drivers of cybercrime in these regions, what we actually seeing is that a lot of the key drivers is obviously poverty and people not having access to good quality opportunity. And when we dug into the opportunity problem, what we actually uncovered was that there was actually often a lack of employable skills. So someone might be able to run Nmap, or might be able to deploy Kali Linux and be able to use Metasploit to be able to do a few attacks. But the problem is often they're not able to tie that to a business context, and often it's not done in a professional way. So therefore, they don't have skills that are employable. And what we're doing, obviously, with CyLynk, which is essentially the next startup, is that we're providing job-ready cybersecurity technical hands-on training. Our focus is on purple teaming skill set, which means we're doing both attack and defend. And we are obviously starting out with wanting to make sure we have enough fundamental knowledge, which is often lacking for those who are wanting to get into the cybersecurity space. So what we're seeing is that a lot of guys want to get into cyber, but they don't quite have the technical knowledge to actually be able to do a lot of the work that businesses need them to do. And I think this is one of the biggest epidemic that is going on right now globally. And I'm sure if you're obviously here, you would have heard of the cyber skill gap. Well, what we found out was that the cyber skill gap, and anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, is actually not necessarily a myth, but it's definitely misunderstood and misclassified. So it's not a skill gap of head count. So cybersecurity doesn't just want more people. Cybersecurity is looking for, organizations are looking for more skilled and talented individuals who are able to solve, their cybersecurity, risk problems and enable their businesses to be able to thrive, right? And this obviously has to be tied to the business context. So if you're good at hacking, it doesn't really mean much if you're not able to actually tie that to to a business that is looking for for solution. So it's really important that obviously that kind of all it gets brought together to deliver an outcome. So CyLynk obviously provides that hands-on technical training, including certifications that are quite uniquely designed to empower individuals in underserved regions. And our mission is to train 10 million people by the year 2050 with the critical job-ready cybersecurity, AI, and tech skills required to defend organizations globally from the emerging and evolving threat landscape, right? So that obviously means that we've got our work cut out for us. So the team and I are doing an incredible job. There's definitely a lot that will be released over the next 1 year. There's a lot that we're building. There's a lot that we're letting, putting out there. If you want to support us, there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can go to CyLynk.com and buy a course, or you can wait in a couple of weeks' time. We're actually going to release our monthly subscription-based learning platform, which enables you to essentially be able to just buy, pay $15 a month Australian to be able to get access to our learning platform. So yeah, look forward to obviously releasing that, to the public, and ultimately being able to essentially become the go-to partner for a lot of universities, because I genuinely think that university education is one of the best things that can happen to anyone, but it needs to obviously be tied with real-world job-ready training. And I remember asking someone who works at one of the well-known universities here in Australia, I think it was just yesterday that I asked them this question, and I haven't gotten an answer yet. So Andy, I'm waiting for you to reach out and answer me. So one of the things I wanted to find out really is university truly the place where you should be getting job-ready skills, right? And the reason I ask this question is that if you look at professions like like law, you go to uni, you study, you do a lot of good study there. They prepare you for the real world and teach you a lot of the theoretical stuff that you need to know, and then give you an introduction into the industry with an internship and all of that stuff. And then you come out of that and actually go and study, which is essentially gain that job-ready skill that is required to be able to work in a bar, right? So without necessarily professionalizing the cybersecurity space, I feel like certifications already do a really good job of that. So if you finish the degree, a university degree, then you need to essentially go and build that technical hands-on knowledge that businesses are looking for. So which essentially put things in a very awkward place where you're finishing your degree, a 3-year or 4-year degree in either computer science or cybersecurity or information security, and then you have you need to put out a buffer of another year where you're actually getting hands-on. Now, obviously, a lot of really clever people are able to do both while they're at uni. But again, I'm not making up my mind about this. It's definitely a question that I've got out there that I'm wanting an answer for. Is university the best place to get job-ready skills? Now, one of the things that is part of our business strategy is to actually work with universities and essentially deliver work-integrated learning. Now, this is designed quite specifically for individuals that have just left, technical school. In Australia here, we call them TAFEs. It could be an academy or something like that you've left from your home country, depending on where you're from and where you're watching this from. And then that get matched with something we call a job-ready track. So our job-ready tracks are designed to be 100% money-back guaranteed. They're designed to be 100%, job guaranteed. So the whole idea of that is that essentially equips you for the job-ready skills that with the job ready skills that you need to be able to land a job. Anyways, the third startup is going to be a cybersecurity consulting firm that is going to be focused on AI and cybersecurity advisory, strategic advisory for businesses, and also we're going to also be doing attack simulation, so attack informed defense. That's essentially who we are. So a lot of the stuff we do is going to be purple team focused. So things like purple teaming as a service, threat hunting as a service, attack simulation, and attack surface management. A lot of the typical stuff that you would see around purple teaming. Now we're not quite the typical blue teaming organization. We're not quite the typical red teaming organization. We see it in the in the intersection between blue teaming and red teaming, which is ultimately the best way to defend your organization, right? If you want to essentially be able to catch a thief, you need to essentially know and understand the tactics and techniques and procedures that the criminal would use against you. Anyway, so it's your boy Sammy Chucks, and startup life, it can be very annoying sometimes, but look, the more you continue to obviously push yourself and grow in this space, that's ultimately the place where you find yourself. I've found over the last 1 year, it's been pretty tough. I know social media can paint a picture of everything is perfect. Now, please don't get me wrong. We're not complaining. We're doing really well. Thank God for that. Like, God's been so good. I think all of you guys already know that I'm a man of faith. Love Jesus and love my family, and love God and love people. Literally so much. And so I'm very grateful for the blessings that I have in my life. Like I said, my beautiful wife does an incredible job of helping out with the business, essentially being my co-founder and also our learning and content director. This match could not have been made anywhere else other than in heaven. She's really good with education and details and making sure that content and graphics and all of that is done properly. With this, there's even a framework for it. It's called pedagogy. I'm like, I have no idea what pedagogy is, but apparently that's something we're implementing on our platform to ensure that you guys obviously have that ability to learn across multiple learning styles. If you're someone who prefers videos, we're going to have demo videos. If you're someone who prefers pictures, we're going to have pictures. If you're someone who prefers just text, we're going to have text content on our platform as well. Essentially making it approachable and interactive, and also accessible. I think accessible is the word I'm looking for. All right. For what we've got today, let's actually check out what. Oh, by the way, if you're there, you're watching me. Thanks so much for joining. I'm sure I'm looking forward to that day when this channel will have 10,000 people watching at the same time, watching me do my thing. And here is my promise. If we have 10,000 people watching this live that are not bots, but I would happily do a rap song. So if you're keen to hear me rap, then you just need to go and tell your family and friends about CyLynk, and then join in on the fun. And then before you know it, I will start rapping. Before you know it, we are going to create an album, that is going to be pretty cool. All right. So what do we have next? Let's actually see. Well, like I said before when I started, we're going to do some research on Docker. How Docker works, what are containers, how Docker differs from Kubernetes, what are some misconceptions that people have there that I have. I'm going to be learning about Docker quite a lot because we need Docker for the work that we're doing, with the CTF. All right. So for what is happening on the threat landscape, let me see if I can find a soundboard. If you're watching me, thank you so much for joining. Do not forget to, hit the like button, subscribe, and let me see if I can find a fat button. That did not work. Okay, let's see. Perhaps you guys heard that. And obviously contribute, comment in the comment section, contribute, and let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you think. My prompt for today is university should university be the place where people get hands-on training and job readiness? I'm not sure. I'm asking, is that the right place to have that? So that's what I'm wanting to know, because in my thinking, just like I gave the example of the law profession, and even the medical profession, You don't just get out of uni and then start working immediately. You actually go through a series of processes to ensure that people can trust you, with their lives or with their legal affairs. And I feel like cybersecurity is the same. It has very critical ramifications on people's lives and people's businesses. So individuals who are trusted with with the job of keeping businesses secure from cyber attacks should be equipped with the job ready skills that is required to be able to do so. And I can guarantee you, a 3 years degree at university is not able to do that, right? And this is why, even having been in the industry for years, you find yourself still wondering how much more is there to learn. It's almost like it's a never-ending lasagna, layer. The more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know, right? Bruh. That's essentially what we're seeing. I think my soundboard might be broken a little bit. Let me have a look at it. Okay, but I could hear the music. Yeah, that works. So why was that not working? All right, let me see if that works. All right, that works now. Okay, confirmed. All right, so let's move on to the next segment. I think that should be threat landscape. So let's see what's happening there. So in case you guys are wondering, where does Semi get his news? There's a few different places that I get my news. One of them is the Hacker News. I also take a look at the Bleeding Computer. They do an incredible job. So what I typically use, what I find is that when you go to these different news organizations, they're not really good at going into the technical details of what actually happened. But what often happens is that they actually have a link that takes you to a more deeper, in-depth research that's been done by someone. So one way to obviously, find that is by going to Bleeding Computer. Another really, really good resource that I'll probably recommend to anyone out there is talkback.sh. If you haven't heard of talkback.sh before, I definitely highly recommend it. Not only does it have cybersecurity news, it has vulnerability information, and it also contains, let me see, I think I'm a little bit squished. It also contains, resources around, different, well-known attacks that is currently ongoing. So you can see that, Windows service. Is that Windows Update service? So a vulnerability in WSUS, CVSS, CVE 2025-59287 allows unauthenticated remote code execution via destabilization flaws exploited with Yosara.net. With around 8,000 servers exposed, necessarily urgent patching, network restriction, enhanced monitoring. So this one looks like a really good one. So and you can see that obviously, like what I said, these places are really good, collection spots for you to then, go to the original source and start diving in deep. I think that's the Windows Update service that is vulnerable. So you can see that critical Windows Server Update service flaw in Windows Server now exploited in attack. So this one is actually really hot off the press. So this one from yesterday. There is there's an episode that I'm wanting to start doing. And that episode is technically supposed to be focused on vulnerabilities, recent critical vulnerabilities. And, I get to talk to you guys about it, explain what it means and, how to protect yourself from it. That was one of the other segments that I was going to start doing. But obviously the key thing there is that sorry, I lost my train of thought. All right, let's see. This one looks like a nice and juicy one. But just to buttress my point there is that something like this, you can then right click and go to the original source of that information from talkback.sh. So talkback.sh, shout out to the Ethan. It does an incredible job. So if you definitely know Ethan, shout out to him. You can obviously reach out. Sorry, this is my bad. Ethan is an actual cybersecurity organization. I forgot about that. Well, there you go. Adversary simulation, applied research, meet some of our clients, blah, 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 blah. So interesting. I did not know that Ethan actually developed talkback.sh. Did not know that. So basically, if you guys know what this is doing, so it's basically just a data aggregator for a lot of cybersecurity news and cybersecurity resources. So essentially, it's a collection of different RSS feeds. You can actually build one yourself. There's this tool that I've used to build mine. I've forgotten what it's actually called. If I go back to my junk mail, I'll find it. Just give me a second, guys. I think it's called I remember building one, so I don't remember what it was called, but it's got this really distinct name. Well, I guess we can ask Uncle Google. RSS feed aggregator. Yeah, iKnowReader. So iKnowReader is a really good one. That's what I was thinking about. So iKnowReader basically does exactly what talkback.sh does. So if you want to build your own version of talkback.sh, you basically just need to know all the different sources of information that you need to query via API, and then that information essentially comes to you. So like you can literally subscribe to research.i.security, and then whenever they release a new blog or a new research, you can actually grab that and then have that available for you in a really nice looking view for you to then refer back to later. So like I wouldn't go too much into the details and technical nuance of this particular vulnerability. The CVS set that is impacting the Windows Server update service. Let's actually see what Bleeding Computer is saying about it. So attackers are now exploiting a critical security Windows Server update service, so which already has publicly available proof of concept exploit code tracked as CVSS 2025-59287. This remote code execution. Now, remote code execution essentially means that the user or the attacker can essentially write and run code on your local system or server without being anywhere close to where the computer is actually located. So someone could be attacking a system in China from Melbourne, Australia, or vice versa. Flaws affect only Windows servers with the WSUS server role enabled to act as an update source for other WSUS server within the organization. So again, what are the chances that a Windows server is installed in an enterprise without this feature enabled? So it's safe to say that over 90% of Windows server deployment, on-prem deployment in the enterprise is obviously running the WSUS service on it, which essentially means that if you're using the version that is vulnerable, which we're going to find out soon, you better go and update as quickly as possible. Threat actors can exploit this vulnerability remotely in low complexity attack that doesn't require privileges or user interaction. Now, this is where things get even murky, right? Because you know how I said with a remote code execution, vulnerability, the attacker or the person who's controlling the system or the person who's actually perpetrating the act can do that remotely. Now, it gets even crazier because typically remote code execution vulnerabilities is not a big deal if the person requires admin privileges, right? So a normal administrative activity like you installing TeamViewer or ConnectWise or whatever it is on a server in the office that you can use to control it from your home and run commands and run code, that is literally remote code execution. It's just that in this case, it's not a vulnerable type remote code execution. It's just that this is an intended remote code execution, right? Because you're the one controlling it and you intend to control it. But when you've got something like no privileges required and no user interaction, which means that authentication doesn't need to happen. So anyone can basically, run, create a specially crafted packet, run it against this, and then have it essentially, exploit the vulnerability, allowing them to run malicious code with system level privileges. That's insane. Under these conditions, by the way, for those who are not aware, the system level privileges is the highest level of privilege there is in a Windows environment. So yeah, that's an interesting one. All right. Under this condition, the security flaw could also be potentially wormable between US servers, which essentially means that it's able to propagate between multiple domains within a domain forest or a domain tree. On Thursday, Microsoft released out-of-bound security update for all impacted Windows Server versions to comprehensively address CVSS 2025-59287 and advise IT administrators to install them as soon as possible. So I believe these are all the different KB releases. So these are probably part of the Patch Tuesday release that Microsoft has done. But in this case, Microsoft did this on Thursday. So I'm guessing this is an out-of-bound sort of advisory. So typically Microsoft will send out this sort of advisory the second Tuesday of every month, which is notoriously called Patch Tuesday in cybersecurity and IT. Microsoft also shared workarounds for admins who can't immediately deploy the emergency patches, including disabling the WSU server role on vulnerable system to remove the attack vector. Now, again, not the end of the world if you disable WSUS on your server. The only key difference is that you might have to maybe use PowerShell or something to enable all the different workstations within the domain forest or domain tree or the local domain environment or enterprise. You need to enable them to go fetch their own updates themselves. Obviously, that could lead to you getting you essentially what's the word I'm looking for here? That could lead to give me a second. That could lead to people downloading software that you have not pre-vetted or validated, which could lead to even more security issues for you within the organization. So the best thing to do is obviously disable that until you're able to patch it, which should not be more than a 48-hour window or 72 hours, in which case 72 hours, unless there's a critical 0-day or critical vulnerability that's come up, just back to back after this, you should be fine to disable it and then and re-enable it later once you fixed it. Dutch cybersecurity firm iSecurity reported earlier today that these guys actually found this earlier. So they were the ones who found it. Today, our morning coffee was rudely interrupted by a critical alert from a customer Windows Server update service system. The alert pointed to suspicious activity captured in our EDR telemetry. Whoami.exe has been executed with w3wp.exe as the parent process. Woo! This is just sweet. Seriously. I don't know why I'm excited about this stuff. Like, if I'm having, coffee in the morning and I see this alert, I'm like, yes, Lord, this is a perfect day. Like, in cybersecurity, it's pretty rare for you to see this sort of, stuff. Like, yeeks, this is good stuff. Who am I and running with the W3WP, exe. So guys, for those who are not aware, so this is the web service, daemon in Windows, which is essentially with the the II server that Windows uses. So as the parent process, this usually strongly suggests a malicious AXPX web shell. So someone has uploaded something dodgy. That's odd because WSU servers are usually not exposed to the internet, are they? Apparently some are. We quickly verified that our WSU server had its own subdomain. It was reachable from the internet. Woo! That is juicy. Like, seriously though, that is good. Running Who Am I is a dead giveaway of either a pen tester or hands-on keyboard activity. It quickly became clear that this was no penetration test. This prompted us. And guys, like, I'm just going to stop and literally just highlight the very obvious point here is that even threat actors make silly mistakes like running whoami.exe to essentially see what permission they have. They have no choice, right? This is the threat actor getting a lay of the land. Now, there's a lot of different ways you can find out this information without running who am I. But like I've been in organizations and in environment where they go, we don't want to detect who am I.exe because somehow this is pen testing activity and it's too noisy. And this is essentially one of the things I obviously I have built and led multiple large, small, medium size, up until my last time before, stepping into entrepreneurship, which, as you can tell, it's giving me a red eye, So basically, one of the things I always say is that shift your focus away from the number of alerts and actually focus your energy on what actually, is worth your time. Because you could have 2,000 alerts and it's not necessarily the biggest deal in the world in the SOC, right? But if you can focus on those things and prioritize, so there's this system that I created. The system essentially categorizes alerts based on what has been tested and what is known, in the wild. So an example is an alert with whoami.exe, though it's very likely to be high false positive alert because of whenever there's a pen test. Well, guess what? It's also really good for detecting, easy, like just floppy mistake by a threat actor, right? In this case. So like it's so good. Anyways, hands-on keyboard reconnaissance, CrowdStrike ADI telemetry reviewed a sequence of commands that looked like reconnaissance, right? So again, the timing between commands, each separated by a few seconds, suggested manual activity rather than a scripted attack. Given the parent process wp.exe, our first hypothesis was a web shell, right? So a member of our research team chimed in with the remark, there is a recent vulnerability in WSUS involving a decentralization bug. We probably wouldn't find a web shell. Ultimately, we found the blog. We found the blog by Hck4G detailing a remote unauthenticated code execution vulnerability in WSUS. Their great research gave details for CVSS 2025-59287. It included a proof of concept targeting hosts at port 8530 HTTP or 8531 HTTPS. It also involved invoking client web service client.axmx. Right, the proof of concept exploit by Hck4G popped a calculator, which is essentially the cat.exe daemon, and does not directly allow arbitrary command execution. This means that adversaries have picked up on this and are getting ready to exploit servers, presumably gearing up for a ransomware, right? So this is the log message they obviously received. So the key thing we probably are looking for here is something like this. So that's a base 64 encoded string, which is probably the command. That's essentially how they encoded the command, right? Yep. And I still read and recognize the basis for encoding, decoding it. All right. Reviewed a Yosemite why so Syria.net gadget chain, probably by the activity surrogate selector gadget with an embedded PE. So again, that's a Windows executable file. So yeah, look, pretty cool stuff. This is executable. So it's safe to say that anyone who's running, a Windows server in the environment, definitely go and double check this. Make sure that you're not vulnerable to it. Just to be safe, because you might not necessarily have the technical skills to go and double check and validate. The safest bet here is to interesting. This is using SUID token. So just to double check. Like, the key thing obviously is to disable it initially, and then once you validated that you're not vulnerable, you can re-enable it, or just for the sake of it, just patch it. Like, just take the advisory from Microsoft. You can look at any of these KB releases or KB patches, which is available on the Microsoft website. You can obviously go there and download that and start patching. Well, this one is an interesting one, definitely very fun. So I definitely recommend anyone who's out there to go and make sure you've patched this vulnerability ASAP. All right, I think that's a pretty good place for us to wrap up this segment. Thanks so much for anyone who's been there, who's been watching. Yeah, let's give ourselves a clap, a hand clap of I don't know. There you go. There you go. Nice. All right, cool. Let's close off all of this. By the way, again, shout out to Etem Security for talkback.sh. Really incredible resource out there. And then obviously if you want to build your one, like I said, I'm not getting like I know that. Seriously, please sponsor this stream. Give us some money, and we'll be able to shout you out. Hey, Fame, nice to have you here. All right, okay. Let's see. Now, to the research of the day. Like I said to you guys, a lot of the stuff we're doing with the CTF platform requires us to know how to work with Docker at least as good as possible. So I've been playing with Docker over the last few years without really diving deep to fully understand what Docker is and how to actively use it to solve problem, right? Like, and the way. Let me rephrase that. So it's not necessarily how to use it to solve problem. It's more how do you use Docker as a solution anchor in your mind or in your brain. So an example is like if you're in an environment and there's already Docker there, you're not necessarily using Docker to solve problem. You're troubleshooting with Docker and trying to solve, absolutely. We're going to have the CTF ready and live soon. The platform has actually been built. I'm just working on the TLS, enablement, making sure that you guys don't actually hack the CTF platform. It's like right in the middle of the CTF platform, the CTF, game, and everyone literally just hacks it, and then everything goes to dies essentially. So basically, the stuff with Docker is what I'm saying is like having this stuff, and this is why I tell people like learning how to code. Even if you don't actually learn how to essentially like literally know how to become a software engineer, that's a completely different beast in and out of itself. But at least learning how to code, essentially the basic of it enables you to start thinking in code, which is a really invaluable skill to have. Now with Docker, what I'm thinking essentially when I say having Docker as an anchor, as a solution anchor in your brain, what I mean is that if you have a problem to solve, knowing what tool or what technology to use to solve it is super critical. And in this case, if you know Docker enough to be able to say, you know what, I've got this problem to solve, and I know that Docker is the right solution, the only way you'll be able to do that is if you've actually played with the technology. So that's why I know that I need Docker to solve a lot of problems, especially with the CTF platform that we're doing. So one of the issues we're having at the moment, it's not necessarily an issue it's a research that I'm still trying to figure out how to solve. And hopefully I can figure it out before the actual CTF. If not, we're not going to have any boot to root type challenges, which is going to absolutely suck. But anyways, for boot to root type challenges, you actually need to interact with the server. And because you're interacting with the server, there's literally hundreds of people playing at the same time as you. You can't just literally ask everyone to use the same virtual machine, because that's just going to kill it. Like that's obviously a denial of service. Now, I'm not going to say distributed denial of service because it's probably not in the thousands, but it is a pure, soft case of denial of service. So there is a way that you can essentially build it where the system essentially auto spins up a new version of that golden image, and then gives people multiple port numbers that they can use to attack the same web application without having to be playing on the same like host, which sucks, right? Because if someone unintentionally deletes the flag, that means they've basically ruined the game for everyone else. So that's one of the issues we're trying to solve at the moment. But cool stuff. All right, so just like everything else, the best way to find a solution to anything is to Google it, right? So let's start with the basic Google. So the first thing I'm going to find out is I'm just going to do a Google search of Google, and then what is Docker container? And then let's see what we can find. Again, no AI. Everyone knows that I'm not a huge AI fan. Now, I am so tempted to go to click the like my brain is telling me to click the official documentation from Docker, but I just cannot resist. I cannot resist this Reddit forum here, this Reddit thread that is literally staring me in the eye. So let's dig in, people. Reddit is where every good gift keeps giving. So if you're not a huge fan of like just literally just reading, people implode on themselves on Reddit, then you should definitely join me on the fun today. So, all right, cool. So, what do we have here? So the question is, please, someone explain Docker to me like I'm an idiot, right? I hear about Docker and Docker swarms all the time now to run different services, Plex server, torrenting, Sonar, and home automation, EDC, and yada yada yada. But for the life of me, cannot wrap my head around what Docker is, how it actually works, and how it would benefit me for my home lab, right? In this case, again, let's just pretend we are building a home lab, right? Guys, just get off my back. Please keep in mind that I am a total noob with when it comes to containerization and virtualization, right? So if we need to go back and sort of refresh and learn what virtualization is all together, again, an idiot definition of what virtualization is essentially computer multiple softwares sharing the same hardware resources, right? Operating system. That's literally what it is. All right, let's see here. So the first question. Now, hopefully this first person, hopefully this first reply to the thread is not calling him names. It seems like they're very thoughtful because they've given a really long response. So let's see what it says. First, you need to understand containers. Containers are something like a virtual machine. It has its operating system and all, and except that unlike virtual machines, they don't simulate the entire computer, but rather create a sandbox environment that pretends to be a virtual machine, right? So if I'm understanding this right, so let me see if I can pull up my my notes. Okay. So if you're following along with me, I'm creating a markdown file called docker.md, and then we're using that markdown file. I'm just going to start taking some notes. So understanding, if I can spell, and solving problems with Docker. So the first question we have is, what is Docker? What is a Docker container? Yep. I see you, QR5 Cyber. Yes, yet another another markup language. Isn't that YAML? Yeah, that's YAML. Guys, ignore my Docker Compose file there, and ignore my other README file, and ignore my index.html here. Just pretend that you cannot see that, all right? Because I don't want to have to close it. Seriously. All right. So the first thing we want to do, obviously, we want to make this all. I don't know. Let's make it H2 or H1. I don't know. I'll deal with that later. But these are my headings. And then typically what I like to do when I'm doing a research like this is to create immediately a reference, tag. So the idea of this is that typically when you're doing research, you just sort of go through so many resources. And as you're going through those resources, you want to kind of start taking notes of them as you go. So for me, I like to sort of start by, adding resources that I find useful. And if it's funny, like the Reddit threads that I'm about to go through right now, you can obviously use that as a good way to, to document that, so you can go back to it and have a good laugh. All right. So now, one thing we did realize is that obviously someone said that we needed to understand containers if we wanted to understand Docker. So, and they said that container is essentially a way to virtualize software. Hang on, let me go back to it. So what does it say here? Containers are something like a virtual machine. It has its own operating system and all, except that unlike virtual machines, they don't simulate the entire computer, but rather create a sandbox environment that pretends to be a virtual machine. So that doesn't quite define it properly. So I guess we'll come back to that later. Usually those containers also run the smallest possible versions of the software. You can theoretically install an operating system like Ubuntu 20 with all its bells and whistles in a container. But what is typically done by professionals is that they build a stripped down version of the operating system that can do one job only. Docker is a way to build and run those containers, save them into templates, etc. So for me, I have two containers running. One is running a Redis server, and the other is running ArangoDB. That's the first time I'm hearing about Arango. Each of these is based on a I'm just trying to figure out where my face is on your screen. I think you guys can still see me. So all right, I have no idea what goes into building them, but I just start there with some minimal added confirmation and then go. Each of these two are exposing only the port needed to do their job on the internet, on the network, and nothing else. So a hacker can typically talk to them like a regular computer. Now I am building an app that can communicate with two containers, putting data in and out of their network interfaces. Right. Again, this guy seems to very obviously have a pretty vague understanding of what Docker is and what a container is. All right. So super helpful. Wow. I finally understand what containers are. Thank you. Amazing explanation. Well, this kind of, I feel like it kind of explains it, but doesn't quite really explain it to me. Like maybe I'm just slow to understand. So what I'll do is I'll go back to the original. Hey guys, feel free to obviously contribute in the comment section. If you think you have some, if you know some really good resource that you want to recommend to me, definitely go and recommend it. I'm definitely going to have a look. We might even have to watch a video or two, but let's look at this. So since that person basically recommended to know what Docker container is, we needed to actually understand what is it? We needed to understand what a container is first, right? So imagine you are developing a killer web app that has three main components: a React front end, a Python API, and a Postgres database, right? If you wanted to work on this project, you would have to install Node, Python, and Postgres. How do you make sure you have the same version as the other developers on your team, or your CI/CD system, or what's used in the production, right? How do you ensure the version of Python, Node, or the Postgres DB your app needs isn't affected by what's already on your machine? How do you manage potential conflicts? Enter containers, right? So again, this is that issue of this is the whole concept of problem statements, right? Why do you need what you need? And it is by understanding problem statements like this that the need for a particular technology or tactic becomes really useful, right? Which is what I was showing the last time we caught up as well. So what is a container? Simply put, containers are isolated processes for each of your app's components. Each component, the front-end React app, the Python API, and the database runs in its own isolated environment, completely isolated from everything else on your machine. So I guess, can someone call this a sandbox environment? Really? Not necessarily, because it's got a lot more than just a sandbox environment. Interesting. Let's keep reading. Here's what makes them awesome. Containers are self-contained. Each container has everything it needs to function with no reliance on any pre-installed dependency on the host machine, right? Isolated, since containers are run in isolation, they have minimal influence on the host and other containers, increasing the security of your application. So that's a good tick for me from a cybersecurity point of view. Independent, each container is independently managed. Deleting one container won't affect any other. So that's good. So it kind of makes things easy that you can nick one container and then basically just move on. All right. Portable containers can run anywhere. The container that runs on your development machine will work on the same way in a data center or anywhere in the cloud. So container versus virtual machines. Now, this is essentially where a lot of the confusion kind of comes in, because if you've already been in cyber or in IT for a little over 5 years, you probably knew about virtual machines or hypervisors way before you knew what a container is. So that can obviously cause a bit of confusion if you're already someone who understands what that is. All right. So without getting too deep, a VM is an entire operating system with its own kernel, hardware drivers, programs, and applications. Spinning up a VM only to isolate a single application is a lot of overhead, right? And this is exactly the solution statement, right? Why do we need a container? Because we want to be able to solve a specific problem that does not require all the bloat that a full-fledged operating system would typically come with, right? A container, which is obviously a huge waste of resources, right? A container is simply an isolated process with all of the files it needs to run. If you run multiple containers, they all share the same kernel, allowing you to run more applications on less infrastructure, right? So now, one of the misconceptions is that by having a container, you are making your RAM bigger. No, you're not. It is still the same RAM that you're using. It's just that you're making the RAM size go further, going further in the sense that typically, like, the average Windows 11 installation is just full of garbage, right? And this is why people use tools like Windows deploy to essentially gut it. Like, why do I need some game on my Windows 11 computer when I'm never going to play it, right? And that's something that is bloating it up. So things like that you literally do not know, and over time, Windows is even making it Microsoft is making it a lot harder to even be able to uninstall any of those services, which sucks, right? That's no good. All right, so quite often you would see containers and VMs used together. As an example, in a cloud environment, the provision machines are typically VMs. Again, this is something that is often abstracted away from the user. When you spin up an EC2 instance, yeah, absolutely, it does. That's good. Thanks so much, Fame. But first time deploying troubleshooting was painful. Absolutely, and that's the key thing, right? Is one of those key things where you're just scratching your head and going, where do I start, right? For me, I have used Docker quite a lot over the years, but I kind of felt like today I needed to maybe just go and do the basics again, just to make sure that I'm getting a hang of what Docker is and how to actually truly and fully leverage Docker. Really, because I want my brain to start thinking about Docker from the point of view of solutioning rather than troubleshooting. So typically, when you are using an application that is already packaged in Docker, it's pretty easy. You essentially Docker init, Docker compose up, and you start running the application. And if something is wrong, you do Docker PS, and then you basically try to troubleshoot that. The problem is that you're actually troubleshooting rather than actually solutioning. And I want to be able to solution with Docker, which is know and understand Docker fully well enough to be able to say, you know what, Docker is the appropriate technology for me to solve the problem that I want to solve. So yeah, all right. So let's keep going. As an example, in the cloud, thanks guys for contributing. Please keep going ahead. I believe we are almost how far we've been going. Seriously, it's almost been an hour. That's insane. So all right, let's read this. So quite often you would see a container and VM used together. An example in a cloud environment, yeah, like we've talked about that, how an EC2 instance is not actually hardware. That is a virtual machine, which is why you cannot virtualize virtualization, right? So this is why something like Vagrant, yeah, actually, guys, I tried this and it failed woefully on me. Like I tried running Vagrant on in a cloud environment, which is essentially trying to run a virtualization tool on top of a virtualization software. Yeah, it did not quite gel well. even though you have like the OS level permission or access, which is infrastructure as code, it doesn't change it. It doesn't change that. All right. So try it out. In this hands-on, you will see how to run a Docker container using the Docker desktop GUI. So I have downloaded the image already. So, all right, using the following instruction, run a Docker container. Open the desktop app, select search field, and top navigation. Specify welcome to Docker in the search input, and select pull button. Is this? All right, let's see. I think I've got the Docker image already installed. So do I need to do? Let's see. Do I need to create an account? Sucks. I think I can skip it. Yeah, I think it does have an ability for me to skip it. I'm not sure what that would do though. So let's see. Yeah, I've already installed the WSL. So apparently, if you are running Docker desktop on Windows, you do need to install WSL, which is on Windows subsystem on Linux. Or is it Linux subsystem on Windows? I'm not quite sure which one it is. All right. Okay. So I think we've got that going. So we've got the welcome to Windows subsystem for Linux. Yep. There you go. Working across file systems. Blah 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 blah. I don't think I need any of this. GUI app and all of that. Starting the Docker engine. Docker engine is the underlying technology that runs the containers. Guys, if you want to actually download this yourself, so I literally just downloaded this from the Docker website, official website. So you just need to do Docker download, and you should be greeted with this. So again, like I was saying, this is an example of where I basically take this as a reference. Now, here is another place where creating a reference is really good. Like after this research today, if I've got time, again, founder, CEO, technical founder, business founder, accountant, economist. I'm literally wearing all the hats at the moment, so I often don't have a lot of time to do a lot of blogging anymore like I used to. But typically, if you start to structure your notes like I'm doing right now, it's a lot easier for you to essentially turn this into a blog, right? And get all those nice minty following on LinkedIn. Yeah. And become a LinkedIn bro. All right, let's do this. All right, Semi, enough yabbering. So it asked us to search for what were we looking for? Go away. So we want to search for welcome to Dhaka. All right, so welcome to Dhaka. There was a dash. I'm pretty sure there's a 2 there. Yeah, that's the one. And okay, so I think we should be pulling it. Let me see if I can do this side by side. And then I want this. So it wants us to pull it, right? Okay. So essentially, obviously, what it's doing here, it's that it's downloading that image from whatever place it's hosted. It'll be interesting to use Wireshark to see what the network traffic is actually, being used here, or what is transpiring over my network. Yeah, I think we're good to go. We've got that now. So once the image is successfully pulled, select the run button. All right. So expand the optional settings. All right. So there we go. In the container name, specify welcome to Dhaka. All right. Let's welcome. If I change the name, is it gonna break anything? Nah. Let's change it. Why not? That's how you learn. NerdKnight episode 62. Woohoo! I'm so sorry, guys, if I did bust your eardrums. All right, let's go. So in the host port, specify port 8080. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's see what else do we want to do. We've got that. Now select run to start the container. Variables. I'm sure we're going to essentially play with all of those later, but for now, let's spin this off. Oh. I figured that would happen. Again, guys, this is how you learn. I'm going to go back again. And this time, go back. Wait a minute. What happened to the one I built? So shouldn't that be saved? 3 months ago. All right, interesting. Kubernetes. Okay. We're going to find all of this, but I'm choosing to use ClickUps because I don't have guidance. All right, so let's go back and do the trick again. So this time, let's run it. And then call it something that doesn't have a deadly name. Let's just call it NerdKnight because we're nice and kind. And then let's do this import again. And let's click run. Cool. So now, all right. So what we're seeing here is Docker is essentially trying to open up a Windows firewall port for port 8080 for it to be able to run. So do you want to allow public-private network access to this app? We click yes. All right. So congratulations, you have run your first container. So that container is now in running state. So how do we find it? So if we go in here, there we go. So we've got it here. If we try to go to it, what do we find? So localhost 8080. What is in there? Nothing. All right. Well, we have the container here. This container runs a web shell that displays a web server that displays a simple website. When working with more complex project, you would run different parts in different containers. For example, you might run a different container for the front end, back end, and database, right? So when you launch the container, you expose one of the container's ports onto your machine. Think of this as creating configuration to let you to connect through to the isolated environment of the container. For this container, the front end is accessible via port 8080, which I've tried that didn't work. To open the website, select the link in the ports column of your container and visit. Well, I've done exactly that. Guys, what did I do wrong? That makes no sense at all. Ah, I see. Typo. I did not have an A in local. There you go. Well. That works. Congratulations, you ran your first container with a lot of confettis. Okay, that's good. Guys, hopefully you're learning with me. So I need to essentially clap for myself. Yes, Sammy, well done, Sammy, well done. You're smashing it, mate. All right, we've run our first container. All right, so to open the website, yeah, we've done that already. Explore the container. So Docker Desktop lets you explore and interact with different aspects of your container. Try it out yourself. Go to the container, view the container desktop dashboard. So view details. Yeah, so we can see what is happening in here. What web server is it actually running? So it might be Nginx. So we can see it's running Nginx and it's using the default configuration file. All right, so it's enabled listening on IPv6 as well as IPv4. All right. Interesting. So it's basically running a Linux OS. Oh, it's just running all of this on WSL too. Okay, cool. So select your container, select the file tab to explore your container isolated system. So if I go back and go to view files. Okay, so we can see all of the different files and directories. Oh, right, you actually get a terminal. That is cool. And you actually get stats as well. I've never used these two, guys. So, guys, pardon my mesmerization. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. Interesting. All right, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. All right, so let's go back to our learning because it is fun so far. Guys, I'm trying to be, well, I'm not trying to be. It just dawned on me that it's very similar to what Network Chuck does. Like the dude is a legend. Seriously, here's to Network. Wait, SalesPoint is not paying. I spit my coffee. SalesPoint is not sponsoring this video, guys. So I'm gonna hide their logo from my cup. Shout out to Network Chuck, man. You've done it. Well done. You've consistently worked hard over the years. Great job, man. All right. So go to the containers view. Yeah, I've done that already. Locate the containers you would like to stop. So let's stop the container and see how we go. Yes. We should be able to do that in PowerShell. Let me see if I can. Yeah, so we've got that. So that's working. That is working. So when we do Docker PS, it is working. So we can see the Docker image, the container ID, and then and we can see the container name NerdKnight like we gave it, and then it's basically just serving the Nginx server. It's serving HTTP over port 8080, and it's also redirecting traffic on port 80 to it as well. So it's just doing some port binding as well. So good stuff. All right, running a container overview of a container. Why Docker? So I think we've just finished this. What is an image? Okay, let's see. So seen as a container is an isolated process. Where does it get its files and configuration? How do you share those environments? That's where containers images come in. A container image is a standardized package that include all of the files, binaries, libraries, and configuration to run a container. For a Postgres image, this image will package the database binaries, config files, and other different dependencies. For a Python web app, it will include the Python runtime, your app code, and all of its dependencies. There are two important principles of image. Images are immutable. You cannot change them. Once an image is created, it cannot be modified. You can only make a new image or add changes on top of it. So you can append, you cannot modify, like you cannot replace. Okay, container images are composed of layers. Each layer represents a set of file system changes that add, remove, or modify files. These two principles let you expand or add existing images. For example, if you're building a Python app, you can start from the Python image and add additional layers to install your app's dependencies and add to your code. This lets you focus on your app rather than Python itself. Interesting. It's a default global marketplace for storing and distributing images. It has over 100,000 images created by developers that you can run locally. You can search for Docker Hub images and then run them directly from Docker desktop. Interesting. Right. So you could potentially start with, like, let's say you are building an app that requires Python. You can start with a Python image and then add all of the different other things that you want from it, want to be in it. So that's good. Hmm. That is good. So one thing I then need to figure out is, now that we've played with that, how do we then build our own Docker container from scratch? So search for and download an image, open the Docker desktop dashboard. Select the image, view the left panel. All right, so let's see if I minimize this. Images, my hub. Right, you have to sign in first. I think that gives us a really nice overview of what Docker is and what containers are. So I'm pretty happy with that overview. So let's go back and get some definitions. So I'm not necessarily looking for getting started. What is Docker? So let's save a note. And then containers. So containers are lightweight and contain everything needed to run an application. You don't need to rely on what is stored on the host. You can share containers while you work and be sure with everyone. Blah, 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 blah. So I figure that's more deployed now. So I think we'll stop here. Yeah, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Q5. Apparently, I need to sign in to be able to get access to those libraries. So I'm gonna skip that for now. So we do need a few things to know. So Docker architecture. So Docker uses a client-server architecture. The Docker client talks to the Docker daemon, which does the heavy lifting of building, running, and distributing your Docker containers. Client and daemon can run on the same system, or you can connect a Docker client to a remote Docker daemon. The Docker client and daemon communicate using a REST API over Unix sockets or a network interface. Another Docker client is Docker Compose that lets you work with application consisting of a set of containers. Right, cool. That's cool. All right. All right. So that's good. So what's the idea of a Docker registry? So a Docker registry stores Docker images. Ah, right. So it's like a registry of different images. Docker Hub is a public registry that anyone can use. So you can technically create your own registry. So Docker looks for images on Docker Hubs by default. You can even run your own private registry. Yep. And when you use the Docker pull or Docker run commands, Docker pulls the required images from your configured registry. When you use the Docker push command, Docker pushes your image to your configured registry. Right. Okay. Okay. Interesting. That's a good point. So that's a tip. I like that. Interesting. So like I like the fact that it's obviously a community of people who have put together a lot of effort into building Docker images in the hub the Docker Hub library registry, which is pretty cool because it means that like if you want to start building something, you don't have to start from scratch. So that's pretty awesome. I like that. So I need to sign in. I think this is probably all the default reading that I'm probably going to do. So what I'm going to right, Docker is built built with Go. It's interesting. Install Docker, I've already done that. 15 minutes. Done that. What does that do? So look, I recognize that this stream has been going for quite a while now. I think what I'm going to do next is go through this, and then when I'm finished with this, I'm going to pick up a project and actually do for real. And that's a good way to sort of gain that hands-on experience, and then I can then start building challenges with that for the CTF. So I think I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with the basics of Docker, not just not just using it without knowing fully what it is. So guys, this is the level of vulnerability and honesty that you will learn to expect from me and my team here. Is that we don't claim to know everything, but we are definitely going to work harder, and we're going to learn harder. We're going to be open to learning and be teachable enough to obviously learn and grow. So if you have not registered for your for the meetup happening on next week Wednesday, the Hack for Good meetup, which is 0x11, is happening next week Wednesday on the 29th of October. So let me see. I think that's in Hck4G. If I Google Hck4G 0x11, so I should have it here. So we're basically what we're going to be doing on Wednesday is we're essentially going to be running a CTF bootcamp. Like just like obviously I'm learning Docker. There's a lot of people who have never played a CTF, and one of the things I really want to happen with the the Hack for Good CTF and con that is coming up on the 15th, the 13th, 14th, and 15th of November is that I want as many newbies and people who have never done this before as possible to be able to play. So as a result of that, we're actually going to be doing a workshop teaching people how to play CTF for the very first time. So if you've never partaken in a CTF, or if you've ever just felt intimidated, or you've been too ashamed or feeling like I don't want to make a fool of myself, well, I can guarantee you, like you guys just saw me learning something, admitting that I've been using Docker without really understanding the underlying technology fully well. Like I had a vague understanding of it, but having gone back and read it and actually seeing that there's actually like a whole new world of like Docker images that I can use within the registry, that I can use that so many other people have contributed to. That is huge. So during this workshop, myself and Long are going to essentially dive in, showing people how to play CTF, how to start your first CTF, and some of the misconceptions. We're going to be busting those myths, and teaching people how to actually start to partake and have fun. Right, the cybersecurity community is obviously very, very fun, and people learn a lot from that. And I would like for you to miss out on the in the power of CTFs and what CTFs can do. And if you haven't followed Hack for Good on LinkedIn, go ahead and do that. I think this page is probably not live anymore, so you can follow us on LinkedIn by going to Hck4Good-new, Hck4G-new, to find that. I'm gonna actually kill that container that we've got going. Let me see. So I don't expose the port. So yeah, and the last thing, obviously, before I stop streaming, and we can obviously have some good music, is I'm going to go to the market. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here with me. I am going to stop the stream, but obviously I'm going to still be learning this stuff and doing some hands-on stuff in the back end. Next week, we're obviously going to be learning something new. Next week, it might be, Terraform or infrastructure as code, as we obviously build something that has never been built before. So I really want to thank you all for doing this with me, for coming on this journey and learning containers, what containers are, what Docker is. I think I'm obviously going to, along this journey, understand the difference between Docker images and Kubernetes and how those things kind of, intertwine. If you have been on this journey with me, thank you. If you're going to be watching this later, you stand a chance if you're in Melbourne, Australia, or even if you're overseas, you stand a chance in winning one of the tickets to Hck4G Con. And for the Hck4G Con day, the main stage is going to be live streamed. So if you want to get a link to that, obviously for those who are not in Melbourne, if you want to be part of that, but obviously the breakout rooms or the workshops will not be live streamed. But we are going to be live streaming the Hck4G meetup next week, Wednesday, where we're going to be teaching people how to play CTF. So even if you're not in Melbourne, even if you're not in Australia, that event is going to be live streamed and you can partake and learn how to play CTF. So if you've never played CTF, or if you've played one in a very long time, and you're still wondering, how do I get back into it? How do I, find the fun that I used to have before? Well, this is the event that you want to register for. Like I said, Hck4G meetup, 0x11 is the place to be to learn all of that stuff about CTFs. Now, obviously, if you're someone who's out there wanting to get into the cybersecurity space, you know what we do. We are all about job readiness first, right? Every single thing we do here at CyLynk is about making you job ready, and it essentially means learning how to solve problems. And this is exactly the reason why I had to go and learn Docker all over again. Is that it's good to know how to use Docker to run Docker, to troubleshoot Docker, to get Docker to do what I want it to do. But if I don't have a solution mindset with Docker, which means if I'm not able to, by default choose Docker in my mind as a solution to a problem that would be best solved by Docker, it means that I don't exactly have the job ready skills around Docker. So this is exactly how we approach learning. So all of our learning is hands-on, job ready focused, scenario-based hands-on labs, and you can either learn with a course or certification. So we have certification partners. Security Blue Team is one of them. So you can get your highly coveted Blue Team's level 1 certification by going to CyLynk.com, or you can obviously buy one of the other CompTIA certifications that we've partnered with CompTIA to have available to you guys. It's all in Australian dollars, and you can jump in and be able to buy one right away without wasting time. So CyLynk.com certification, you should be able to get those certifications. And also we are also reselling LPI certifications as well. Linux Professional Institute, great partners, and they've always looked after us. So I definitely encourage you, if you're someone who's obviously been in the cybersecurity industry and you're wanting to certify your knowledge and validate that you know what it is you're doing, then you definitely want to get certified with one of these other certifications that I've just listed out to you. So reach out and buy one of those certifications, or you can buy one of our courses. And remember this, guys, when you buy something from us, when you patronize, when you do business with us, you are indirectly supporting the movement with Hck4G. And because CyLynk and BridgeLink and all of other businesses are essentially designed to support and to fund the non-for-profit organization. So we thank you in advance for obviously your support. Do not forget to go to CyLynk.com to obviously see one of the things that we have. And guys, we have an update coming up. Our platform is going to be available within the next 2 weeks for you to essentially be able to subscribe. So rather than paying $500 for a course, you can literally just go in and be able to buy a subscription to our platform and get access to everything for $15, as low as $15 Australian. So $15 Australian dollars is less than $10 in the US and less than $5 UK pounds. So it is a steal, an absolute steal. So with that, I want to really thank you all for your time and for hanging out with me, for learning with me. I genuinely appreciate it. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please, I encourage you to do so. That is the only way we're going to grow. And that is obviously encouraging. That encourages me to continue to do some of this research and to bring some really good resource, a really good event to you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for partaking. With that, I'm going to bow out. Enjoy the rest of the day, and then see you guys next week for another fun one. And do not forget to buy your ticket for Hck4G Con 2025 Hack of Nerd Nation.